Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of Andrew and I'm on Deep, the show where I simp for Mr. Bhutar. Now today we're going to be taking a look at some limit rules. So we've got 5 rules to go over today. We're going to look at the sum, the difference, the quotient, the product rule, as well as the constant rule. So we can get started here. We're going to define a few things first. We'll have a function f of x. We'll do that in red. We'll have a green function. Maybe turn down the thickness a bit. We'll have a green function g of x here, okay? And so we're going to say, okay, well, when x approaches a, then f of x approaches L. We'll do L in red as well so it matches. And similarly, when x approaches a, then g of x approaches, we'll call this one m, maybe. There we go. Okay, so just remember that we're going to be using this as we go through our rules. So the first rule, the sum rule. So if I were to ask you, okay, what is the limit of when x approaches a of this big function here? We have f of x plus g of x. So this whole thing. Now you could add these functions, if you had these defined, you could add the functions together and figure it out from there. But the limit rules tell us something nice. They tell us, okay, you can distribute the limit. You can go like this. You can bring the f of x out, and you can just add that here. Sorry, this is an x here. So this is similar to the distributive property. We're kind of distributing this limit here to both functions. But it is not the distributive property, it's just similar to it. So keep that in mind because this will be important as we go through the product rule. Now the subtraction rule is similar, or the difference rule, sorry. We can say, okay, this is actually a plus minus, and so is this. So this works with minus as well. When we have two functions multiplied by each other, which is the product rule, we'll say f of x times g of x. Then, well, this is actually still really, really simple. We can say limit x approaches a, and you can just do the same thing as the product, as the sum and difference rules. You can just multiply them together. So these rules are actually really simple if you think about it. You're just taking the limit of both functions first and then doing the operation, instead of doing the operation first and then taking the limit. Now the quotient rule, which is for division, is almost the same, but it has one key difference. So let's have f of x divided by g of x here. And this is equal to, as you would expect, limit x approaches a of f of x over limit x approaches a of g of x. But we have to say that, okay, limit when x approaches a, that is an a that I have written there, again, my bad, x approaches a, g of x cannot be 0. Because we know that when we have a 0 in the denominator, our entire division is undefined, and that's no good. So we say, okay, it can't be 0. But other than that, it's all good. So remembering that we define these as L and M, we can say, okay, well, this is equal to L plus minus M. This is equal to L times M. And this is equal to L over M. M can't be 0. So these are super easy to remember, just it's the same thing for all of these. Now the last one you should know is the constant rule. So this one kind of applies twice here. If we start looking at this idea here, c of f of x, c times f of x, sorry, where c is a constant. So c stands for constant, which means it doesn't have x in it. It's a random number. It could be 3, it could be 7. Well, this tells us that we can take the c out of the limit here. So we can do c times the limit. And this should make sense because the limit only changes x. But c is a constant, it doesn't have x in it, so it's unaffected by the limit in a way. So here we go, we can take the constant out of the limit and just take the limit of the function. A final note about constants is that the limit as x approaches a of a constant is just the constant itself. Again, because the constant isn't affected by x. It's not dependent on x. And so when x approaches a, the constant is still the same. It doesn't change. But yeah, so those are the limit rules. Thank you again for watching. Please subscribe. Every subscriber gets me closer to simping harder for Bhutar. And yeah, see you next video.